large. And so we will be meeting with the Medical Services Board prior to our actual hearings to give an overall view of the structure and how they can kind of be oriented to where things are moved from and to, and how to find things that they're looking for. This will also be available to the public once it is once it's finalized. So then final drafts will go to our Medical Services Board coordinator, who will post for public comment, like I mentioned, and then we'll get our Attorney General's office formal review, and then we go to our official presentation to the Medical Services Board and answer their questions and hopefully get our approval. Our rules will go into effect hopefully January 2024. Next slide, please. So our timeline, we are currently in the rule revision stakeholder engagement process. Final drafts have to be completed and through e-clearance by September of this year. And I know from June to September seems like a long time for things to go through clearance, but we do have quite a few people to clear our documents, and it is quite a long document to clear, so it will take some time. So we're adding in some buffer room on both ends on that, but hopefully that will be enough time to get through everyone. Then we'll have our initial prep session with the Medical Services Board group. And then in October, we'll have public comment, and our first Medical Services Board hearing will be in November, and then our final rule adoption in January. Next slide, please. So questions about why we're doing this. So as most of you know, our current rule structure is pretty fragmented. There are kind of pieces all over the place. They refer back and forth to each other. They overlap. It can be kind of confusing for state staff, for members, for providers, for case management agencies, advocates, to really understand what is expected.
Larger, please. Can we get that larger?
Can we make it larger? Next slide, please. We'll try to zoom in, Jerry. Hang on just a second.
Thanks.
Sure. So the new rule structure that we're proposing and that we're moving forward with is starting out with all of the waiver and program requirements, and then moving to case management agency and case manager requirements, community center board requirements, service definitions, and then provider requirements. There will be still some references back and forth, but hopefully there is a little more of a clear structure that flows from waiver program requirements and then down through all of the various pieces of the program. Next slide, please. So through this process, we are hoping to reduce the duplication and remove areas of the rules that are obsolete and not applicable anymore to case management or to home and community-based services. So we're going to clarify case management, provider, and member roles and responsibilities, and we're going to pull all of this into a structure that is hopefully easier to follow and understand. As we've mentioned a couple of times now, there will be a listening log that's currently posted on our website and is updated during each meeting. We also update it after. If we get emails or comments in other meetings, those are added as we get those. And there's also a log for any issues for further discussion. So anything where we need to dig in a little bit deeper, or we need other people at the table to have those conversations, then we're putting that in a separate log called issues for further discussion. We'll go over that in a second too. And lastly, if you can't make any of the meetings, please feel free to email myself or Nicolette with any comments about what you're seeing in the rules or questions. We're happy to get those answered, but we'll also put those in our log. Next slide, please. So in a lot of cases, we are really, with this restructure, we're really just moving the rules around to be in a more accessible format. So we're looking for answers to questions like, is this a logical place? Is any of this language outdated? Are there any errors? Is there better plain language that we can be using? So the changes that you'll see in specific colors that we'll go over when we pull up the rules are really focused around the new statutes and requirements in place for case management and how those changes need to look in rules. So in those instances, we're really looking for comments about what language addresses the intent of the new statute, not necessarily about how it can be done differently. If it's in statute, then we have to follow what's outlined during that rulemaking process. Again, if there are issues that come up that we can't answer immediately, or the group wants more time to dig in and ask more questions, we'll have an issues for further discussion topic, and we'll address those at that point. Next slide, please. So for these rule meetings, we have some pretty clear roles and responsibilities on our part, and wanted to make that clear to you all. So myself, Nicolette, and John Berry, when he's here, are the facilitators. Excuse me. We're doing the introductions, all of this preamble talking that you're seeing right now, making sure conversations are moving forward, that we are walking through those rule changes, timekeeping, making sure questions get into the queue, those kinds of things. We also have subject matter experts, and those are the folks who have really vetted and nuanced all of these rules. These are their rules that are being proposed, and they'll be the ones to answer questions, concerns, or comments as they relate to these rule updates, and they'll be giving us guidance on any changes or language updates, structure, those kinds of things. And then last, certainly not least, is our contractor HCBS strategies. They are really doing our record keeping. So they're making sure that our listening logs are up to date in these meetings. They're making sure that our deadlines are being followed, that as we're walking through the rule changes, that we have clear language of what is being asked and what is being requested. They help us with addressing those questions and assisting with time management and follow-up questions. Next slide, please. This is actually already outdated as of yesterday. So we currently have 263 lines of feedback for these rules, which is awesome. We're so grateful to get all of the feedback. So next slide. And then this is where you can find the issues for further discussion. Any questions on the structure? I know most of you have been here a couple of times at least, so this is familiar to you, but want to offer a chance to ask questions if you need it. Okay, next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, we heard your concerns last time. I took those back to our leadership, and the chat will be copyable. So please wait until the end of the meeting to copy this. Our staff, HCPF staff, will be monitoring for protected health information, and we'll be deleting that as soon as possible. Like during the meeting, that will be deleted. Also, when we copy it, if there's anything that was missed, that will also be deleted. That is kind of the big hang up with copying the chat, is the risk of protected health information. So we really, really ask you, please, 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 do not share that in the chat. It is really helpful for us. We want to make this available to you all, as we know it's helpful to you too. Again, everything that's in the chat also goes into our logs. So, so hopefully those will match up. If they don't, let us know. Second update, our staff are working on updating the logs. You can see today that there have been some updates from our last session. They're not all updated. We do have a lot going on. It also requires some internal coordination to make some of those updates and get that approval to make those updates. So hang tight with us, and we will we'll be updating those as soon as we can. And then last, as follow-up from last meeting, we will be having an issues for further discussion case management version on May 9th. And we'll be discussing case management agency choice and portability, cost containment, and then anything that comes up from this meeting. So Nicolette has put those links in the chat. If you can look at the issues for further discussion and see if your name is in the attendees section, if it's not and you would like to be involved, please let us know. We will make it public, but we also want to have a very targeted conversation about this for people who are wanting to be a part of that conversation. So that will be, you'll be getting updates about that, and I'll be emailing specifically the group that that has said that they want to be a part of those meetings. So let us know if you want to be involved. Next slide, please. Okay, so for today's review, we left off last time at the end of the case management agency requirements. So last time we did a vote, a poll. Sorry, words are hard this morning apparently. And we asked about combining the case management agency and case manager functions. We heard from you all kind of a 50-50 split. So we went to our internal kind of rule experts, and they recommended combining case management agency and case manager functions just to stop the duplication. So we're trying to simplify the rules. Let's not create more confusion. So for today's rules, we're going to be going through the first section of the rules. I'm guessing this is about how far we will get through. I will mention that we're not going to be discussing the level of care or the needs assessment because those are going through the Medical Services Board process right now with Michelle Topkoff and her team. So if you have questions about those, please email Michelle and she can answer her team. She can answer those questions, or someone from her team can answer those questions. I'll put her email in the chat when I'm done talking. But we're going to try to get through as much as we can today. And then we're guessing that we will likely have to add another meeting. So we'll meet again probably, I think we have scheduled next week. Is that right, Nicolette? I think May 2nd is our next scheduled one.
Yes, we do. We have a just in case meeting in there, so it's good.
Great. All right, next slide. So I know I'm running short on time. I'm going to go real quick. Rules versus contract. We've talked about this before, but rules define what must be or what must not be done by all case management agencies or case managers to comply with mandatory guidelines, but don't necessarily have all the requirements of a case management agency or case manager because of some of those live in our provider agreements and our contracts. So the contracts are really our legal agreements between the department and the case management agency. This includes standard boilerplate requirements for all contracts and specific details and timeframes for each activity and deliverable. Deliverable is just contract speak for the thing that they're supposed to do and when it's due to the department. So provider agreements are also legal agreements between the department and the case management agency. They are specific to targeted case management requirements, timelines, and reimbursement for activities billed through the Colorado interchange by the case management agency. Targeted case management requirements for the case management agencies are only found within the department rules. So those are much more robust in our rules. The department will also use language of things like being in alignment with most recent department training and communication. This gives us some flexibility to shift and change as our system evolves and as our requirements or the federal requirements become more nuanced or more sophisticated. Next slide, please. So this is kind of a high-level overview of what you'll see. So contract reimbursement, you'll see deliverables, pre-enrollment activities, state general fund programs. Targeted case management, you'll see ongoing case management, monitoring, and rural travel add-on. This is how these are kind of split out. So you'll see more information about that ongoing case management, monitoring, and rural travel in the rules than you will around pre-enrollment activities or state general fund programs. I hope that makes sense. Next slide. So some changes to SPOT. We are, like I said, combining the case management agency responsibilities and functions and case manager responsibilities and functions. So you'll see some of that in today's review. You'll see a difference between member versus individual. You'll see case management agency replacing single entry point or community center board. You'll also see language updates to align rules with the contract waiver and statute. And I think that's it. Those are kind of the major changes that you'll see today. Okay, so with that, we will go ahead and start our review of the rules. I will let Nicolette walk us through that.
Did it switch over?
It did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So as I go through the rules, you're going to see a few areas. Anything that you see either in blue or with these backslashes, or that's in between these backslashes, these are major revisions that we have made. Anything with these braces around them or in green, you'll see it's either combined or moved similar language. So it could have been in one area of the rule and we've brought it here, or we've just made little upgrades to the language to help it be more understandable. Outdated references, you'll just see a slash through them and I'll just leave those alone. And then outdated references to be updated and language to be removed. You'll also see these brackets and red, and then we won't go over any of those. The main things that you'll see me going through are going to be anything that's in the braces and green, or the backslashes in blue. All right, and I'm going to get started. So our first area is, we're starting off now at 8.7206 and functions of a case management agency. So in here, you're going to see a lot of in our intake, screening, and referral area. You'll see a lot of these in green that just say case management agency. It may have been STEP or CCB in the past. It's all just changing that language because they will all now just be the case management agencies. And then under this one, we've made a little bit of a change or move, and that's referring the individual to the County Department of Social Services of the individual's county of residence for application and support with completing an application in accordance with 8.100. And then again, more of the case management agency updated language. And under E, a screening to determine whether a functional eligibility assessment is needed, the individual shall be informed of the right to request an assessment if the individual disagrees with the case manager's decision. And then again, we're just in the green of the case management agency. And then after this page, since there hasn't been a lot, we can still pause for questions. Issues identified in this comprehensive review that cannot be addressed by the member identified team, replaced by interdisciplinary team. And then instead of individualized plan or individualized service, it's person-centered support plan and case management agency, community center, board, or regional center. So before we go into nursing facility admissions and discharges, do we have any questions? Again, just go ahead and you can either raise your hand and we'll put it in the queue, or you can type your name in the chat. All right, so then we can go ahead and continue. I do not see anybody. All right, so for nursing facility admission and discharge, again, you're just going to see some of that case management agency language change. And then we have an addition of a major rule revision here, which is under number 1, provide options counseling on community-based services to the individual to identify if the desire to live in the community with additional support. That has been an add. Then under B, we just see a lot of, again, the case management agency language changes all throughout. And then level of care screen, which is a change of language, but nothing new. Again, just a lot of more updates to the case management agency language throughout, and then maybe some outdated references or new references that we are now putting in there because we could have taken some of these rules from one section and they're now going to live here, and it's showing where we retrieved those from. Okay, before moving on to determination of developmental delay and or disability, are there any questions for the nursing facility section? Okay, oh, and I see Tiffany is answering some of those questions in the chat, so perfect. All right, we can keep on moving. So for the determination of developmental delay and or disability, the determination of developmental delay and or disability shall be in accordance with 8.607.2 sections in statute in accordance with criteria as specified by the department. Level of care determination. The level of care screen shall be used to establish a member's level of care. For additional guidance on the level of care screen, as well as the actual tool itself, see sections 8.401.1, guidelines for long-term care services. And B, at the time of completing the level of care screen, actually, sorry, Tiffany, were we going to not go over level of care since those are going to be the new?
Yep, that's great. Yep, we'll skip level of care.
Sorry about that, folks. I just start reading. And these are the ones, just to remind you that they are already in MSB and everything right now. I'm going through all of that with Michelle Topkoff. So we're going to skip through those because those are not part of ours. And the needs assessment as well is also something that's already going through that, correct?
That's right.
Perfect. Sorry, hopefully this isn't making anybody busy. Okay, we will get right to the wait list management. Okay, so A, there shall be one waiting list for persons eligible for the HCBS/DD waiver when the total capacity for enrollment or the total appropriation by the General Assembly has been met. B, the name of a person eligible for the HCBS/DD waiver program shall be placed on the waiting list by the case management agency, making the eligibility determination if the member meets developmentally disabled waiver target criteria. C, when an eligible person is placed on the waiting list for HCBS DD waiver services, a written notice of action, including information regarding client rights and appeals, shall be sent to the person or the person's legal guardian in accordance with the provisions of section, I've gotten rid of the outdated section. The placement date used to establish a person's order on a waiting list shall be. And then we crossed through some old regulation. The date on which the person was initially determined to have a developmental disability by the community center board, or the 14th birth date if a child is determined to have a developmental disability by the community center board prior to the age of 14. As openings become available in the HCBS DD waiver program in a designated service area, the case management agency shall report that opening to the operating agency. Persons whose name is on the waiting list shall be considered for enrollment to the HCBS DD waiver in order of placement date on the waiting list. Exceptions to this requirement shall be limited to 1, an emergency situation where the health and safety of the person or others is endangered, and the emergency cannot be resolved in another way, and if the person meets DD waiver target criteria. Persons at risk of experiencing an emergency are defined by the following criteria. A, homelessness, I think it's supposed to be that. The person will imminently lose their housing as evidenced by an eviction notice, or whose primary residence during the night is public or private facility that provides temporary living accommodation, or any other unstable or non-permanent situation, or is discharging from prison or jail, or is in the hospital and does not have a stable housing situation to go upon discharge. B, abusive or neglectful situation, the person is experiencing ongoing physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect in the person's present living situation, and the person's health, safety, or well-being is in serious jeopardy. Do you want me to pause there or just finish through these?
If you want to finish through the eligibility for the this section, and then we'll pause for questions.
Great. Okay. C, danger to others. The person's behavior or psychiatric condition is such that others in the home are at risk of being hurt by him or her. Sufficient supervision cannot be provided by the current caretaker to ensure safety of the person in the community. Danger to self, a person's medical, psychiatric, or behavioral challenges are such that the person is seriously injuring, harming self, or is in imminent danger of doing so. Loss or incapacitation of primary caregiver. A person's primary caregiver is no longer in the person's primary residence to provide care, or the primary caregiver is experiencing a chronic, long-term, or life-threatening physical or psychiatric condition that significantly limits the ability to provide care, or the primary caregiver is age 65 years or older and continuing to provide care poses an imminent risk to the health and welfare of the person or primary caregiver, or regardless of age and based on the recommendation of a professional, the primary caregiver cannot provide sufficient supervision to ensure the person's health and welfare. Enrollments may be reserved to meet statewide priorities.
Hold on, Nicolette. Let's pause right there.
Great.
We've got quite a few questions.
Okay.
So I do want to first clarify that that was a typo, that CCBs are not doing determinations. So that was a typo. We'll make that update. And then questions regarding wait list. I see some questions in the chat. Kidron, I don't know if you want to address those.
Sure can. So I'm seeing questions about statewide or local management of the waiting list. It will still remain a statewide waiting list managed by the department. The case management agencies will be doing the DD determinations and asking members that they want to be on the waiting list, assessing members that they meet criteria for the DD waiver. All of that will still remain under the case management agency responsibilities and functions. And then the department will still maintain that statewide waiting list based on legislative appropriations for how much money we get to serve people in that waiver. So I think that, I believe that should take care of most of those questions. I see a comment from Whitney about rewording words like appropriation and general assembly, as they're not commonly known. We can certainly take that back and see if there's anything else that we can use that's more plain language. Pat, you have a question. Why is the emergency criteria in the case management section and not in the HCBS DD section? I think our goal was to have it in this section, so that way we could have how case managers or case management agencies assess people, whether or not they explain to folks how they can ask for an emergency enrollment, and then also give direction to case managers and case management agencies about what criteria would be those emergency enrollments. Again, to just have that responsibility in the case management section rather than the waiver itself. Jerry, I see that you have comments about their wait list, whether or not somebody needs I'm assuming ASAA as soon as available, and safety net. Is that comment, Jerry, to say that you think that we need that level of detail in the rule, explaining that there are different avenues of waiting list status?
Yes, I think people would go there to look for that, and something should be there about the two types of waiting lists and a definition of each.
Okay, thank you for that feedback, Jerry.
I see Nancy's hand. Kidron, can you clarify, will we be able to put in that it is a statewide waiting list? Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly make that a little bit more plain language and describe those things. Easy fix.
Okay. Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you, Tiffany. Actually, this is probably for Kidron too, to go along with what Jerry was saying. I was also going to say the C dates, because D2 makes it sound like someone who is 14 years old can be considered for the DD emergency enrollment, and they can't. So clarifying as soon as available, safety net and C date.
Okay. Thanks, Nancy. And I think Liz, I think that's what you're referring to in your comments about the third waiting list status for members that are not 18 yet. Yeah. Okay. So we can definitely take that back, that we need some clarification and language there to, have those waiting list statuses added into that language, so it's a little bit easier to understand.
Great. Thank you, Kidron. Thanks, everyone. Any other comments, questions, concerns about the section that we have gone over already? Otherwise, we'll start on letter G and keep going.
All right. We will keep on going. Okay, so G, enrollments may be reserved to meet statewide priorities that may include 1, a person who is eligible for the HCBS DD waiver and is no longer eligible for services in the foster care system due to an age that exceeds the foster care system limits. 2, persons who reside in long-term care institutional settings who are eligible for the HCBS DD waiver and have requested to be placed in a community setting, and persons enrolled in the CES, CHIRP, or CLLI waivers before their 18th birthday. 3, persons who are in an emergency situation. H, enrollments shall be authorized to persons based on their criteria set forth by the General Assembly in appropriations with, when applicable. 1, a person shall accept or decline the offer of enrollment within 30 calendar days from the date the enrollment was offered. Reasonable effort shall be made to contact the person, family, legal guardian, or other interested party. 2, upon a written request of the person, family, legal guardian, or other interested party, an additional 30 calendar days may be granted to accept or decline an enrollment offer. The delineation reason shall be recorded in the department's prescribed system within 10 business days. If a person does not respond to the offer of enrollment within the allotted time, the offer is considered declined and the person will maintain their order of placement date. The case management agency shall record all waiting list communications, enrollments, and declinations. So in the department's prescribed system within 10 business days. Declination, sorry. The CMA shall record annual waiting list review within the department's prescribed system within 10 business days. We will pause there for any questions on that section.
All right, so we'll open the queue for anyone who wants to make comments verbally by raising your hand, or you can put your name in the chat to be added to the queue. Would anyone like to do any verbal comments, questions? Okay.
Betty?
I see Betty. Go ahead.
So my question is, we give a person one notice, might be sent to the wrong place, person may not be aware. Do we not send a second notice before we terminate their application within the 30 days?
Kidron, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I'll be happy to take that, Tiffany. Hi, Betty. This is Kidron. The intent of the language that we have here outlined in rule is that case managers would be expected to make all efforts to communicate with a member and or guardian in this case, while the notice of action that goes out is just one notice of action. It would be expected that the case manager would try all avenues to reach the person before that goes out.
That's not in there.
It's
not a directive that's in there that all efforts should be made by case management agency to contact that person.
I think, Nicolette, can you scroll up just a little bit? It was reasonable effort shall be made to contact the person, family, legal guardian, and other interested parties. So that's the language that we have there.
I think reasonable effort, you know, may want to include like at least a second notice, or, I mean, how many times have you gotten one notice? It didn't show up in your mailbox, you're out, you know, or, so I just think that reasonable efforts might be better defined for case management agency.
Okay. Thanks for that feedback, Betty. We can definitely take that back and see if we can accommodate a more robust language there under that section.
Also, there's nothing in there about how many days the state has to respond to the request. So if I sent in a request to be an emergency enrollment for the DD waiver, how many days does the state have to process that request and respond to me?
Sure. We don't have that outlined in rule, Betty. General practice, we are usually able to respond within a few days if we have all of the relevant information. So that's not something that we would necessarily have outlined in rule, at least not at this point, but we can certainly take that as a suggestion back to see if there might be a good place to fit that in.
Right, because there isn't anything anywhere that says how many days the state has. It's just open. It's all, the constraints are put onto the individual with intellectual and developmental disabilities. No constraints about timeliness are put onto the state in this back and forth. So if the state, like on the last day before, you know, I mean, it's, people are waiting to learn, and the state should have some kind of timeline that people can look up and say, it's been 10 days and I haven't heard anything. Do you see what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, Betty. Thank you. And I see that there are some comments in the chat that agree with you. So again, we'll definitely take that into consideration as we continue to develop these rules and see if there's a good place for that.
All right, thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your input.
Anyone else for the speakers queue? All right. I do see some comments and questions in the chat. Again, those will be added to our log. We will try to address any questions where we can. Thank you.
All right. We will pick back up on telehealth and delivery. Not much here though, except for the case management agency language changes and updating some references. Utilization review. The case manager shall complete a utilization review at quarterly, monitoring, or as needed. And then we just have a lot of the updates that are going to happen for the cost containment. So those are being pulled right now. And we can get into the person-centered support coordination. Okay. A, services and support coordination shall be the responsibility of the case management agencies. Service and supports coordination shall be provided in partnership with the person receiving services, the parents of a minor, legal guardians, and public and private agencies to the extent such partnership is requested by these individuals. Persons receiving services who are their own guardians may also request their family or others to participate in this partnership. B, services and support coordination shall assist the eligible person to ensure, 1, a person-centered support plan is developed utilizing necessary information for the preparation of the person-centered support plan and using the interdisciplinary team process. 2, facilitate access and provisions of services and supports identified in the person-centered support plan, the coordination of service and supports identified in the person-centered support plan for continuity of service provision, and the person-centered support plan is reviewed periodically as needed to determine the results achieved. If the needs of a person receiving services are accurately reflected in the person-centered support plan, whether the services and supports identified in the person-centered support plan are appropriate to meet the person's needs, and what actions are necessary for the plan to be achieved. 5, the case management agency shall develop the person-centered support plan for individuals not residing in nursing facilities within 15 business days after determination of a program eligibility.
Nicolette, let's pause right there. So we'll take comments, questions for the telehealth and delivery and utilization review. You'll notice that we have crossed out all of the cost containment language that is being worked on separately, and then the person-centered support coordination. So I have Liz in the queue. Is there anyone else who would like to raise their hand or be put in the queue for a verbal comment or question? Nancy, I see yours. Anyone else? Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Yes, under the utilization, I guess I'm getting a little confused because under utilization, it says that it'll be reviewed at the quarterly monitoring. But I'm not quite sure how that interfaces with the document that Michelle Topkoff sent out. That is the 8.393 functions of a case manager, which says that we'll contact them at least once every quarter. I guess there's some confusion as to the language. Is a contact a quarterly monitoring? There seems to be some disconnect between the two different documents, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I'm looking at 8.393.1A. And let's see if I've got the two different documents as compared to the document we're looking at.
I think so that is going to be different. That is still in the context of our current rules because those will go into effect sooner than these.
Okay.
This is the restructuring of the case management requirements. So this is just about utilization review. I think, and Kidron, you can jump in here if I'm wrong. My understanding is that for utilization review, this is just adding a requirement to do a utilization review at the quarterly monitoring. It's not saying that that counts as a contact or that counts as a monitoring, but it's a part of the monitoring.
Right, but should I even be referencing that other document to make sure that it's consistent between the two, or is that document that was sent out by Michelle not going to matter in the future?
So our hope is that everything would be captured in this document. We will have to do another review when Michelle's rules are complete to make sure that that crosses over. But if you're seeing any conflicts, you're welcome to call those out and we'll send those back to the team and make sure that they are kind of cross-referencing and making sure that those are consistent.
Okay, then I'll wait to see if there's more on the monitoring later on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. All right, Nancy.
Tiffany, my comment goes to utilization reviews as well. In the utilization reviews at the quarterly monitoring, I think there has to be some language too about provider agencies not having the appropriate staff to meet the needs. I see that. I mean, I understand everyone has work shortages, but we're seeing that more consistently where people aren't getting their services due to lack of staffing. I don't know if that goes here or somewhere else, but I think that has to be discussed too at these monitorings because it poses a big problem.
So are you asking, can you clarify exactly what you're asking for in the rules, Nancy?
You know, when a provider agency doesn't have the appropriate staffing levels to support the person and their needs, we're seeing that like utilization reviews. When you look at utilization and services aren't being billed per the service plan because they're being underutilized, because the provider agency doesn't have the appropriate staffing levels, or someone quits, there's no backup plan. That's a big detriment to the people we serve. And I think it has to be addressed somewhere, but I don't know if it's under utilization reviews or provider responsibilities.
Okay. So can you hold, so this is just about utilization review, like the actual review, not necessarily what action to take. But I think at the monitoring that there might be more information, but you're saying that even on the as needed basis, that if case managers are seeing a low utilization, that there needs to be an investigation of why and
Yes.
following up to make sure that services are being provided.
Yeah, not just talking about overutilization or misuse of funds, but really even appropriate staffing patterns.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that suggestion, Nancy.
Yeah, and I was also going to say under person-centered support plan or support coordination, it says interdisciplinary team process on B.
I saw that too, and I saw
Okay.
a comment in the chat that got missed. Yep,
Okay.
we will make that update.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next in the queue I have Betty.
So this is not necessarily just specific to the person-centered support coordination, but just something to keep in mind in general. This is going to be a big surprise, but not all people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are identical in their capacity. And so this morning or yesterday, the CDC said 25% of people on the autism spectrum are what's called profound. And so when we're looking at, how do we support these people? There are people with IDD who, are intellectually intact. They can talk, they may struggle with certain things, but I just feel like there's never a consideration that is named for people who are how the family or a guardian is incorporated in this. So I hear from families when they go to a person-centered support plan and the person is saying, I can do that, or I don't need that, or I don't want that. And they're not really essentially the best person in the room to be making these decisions. How does a case management agency sort that out? Like, when do you listen to the guardian or the supported decision-making group, or when do when does the person themselves supersede what happens in their person-centered support plan and coordination? How is that figured out? And is that something that's in rules, or how? I mean, it's just never mentioned. And so I just wanted to bring that up at this point, that this could really work against people with IDD in either situation when they are competent and can communicate and direct their care, versus those who are unable to meaningfully participate in this. They're there in person and they may be making negative comments. I don't want that person. I don't like this thing. I don't want that. And so there's no guidance in these rules around what a case management person should be doing in the recognition of the essentially the capacity of the person that they're serving. So it's just a general comment. And that was,
Yeah.
I just think it's important to realize that a quarter of the people with an autism label would not be able to participate meaningfully in their service, their person-centered support plan.
Thanks for that feedback, Betty. I think that your point is well taken, and we'll put that on our issues for further discussion. Kidron, I don't know if you have an immediate response, but I know that's definitely discussions that are being had at the department level about person-centered support and what that looks like. Go ahead, Kidron.
Yeah, Betty, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Yes, that is something at the core of what person-centered support planning is all about. It's about finding that balance of how to support a member and their autonomy to choose people who are at the table, and also, having folks that can help support that person in a way that makes sense. So it's not something that we would put in the rules, but it is something at the core of case management training that we do. It's part of a lot of the work that we're doing in training case managers, case management agencies, to make sure that they have the tools to have those conversations and to empower members to have that autonomy and those situations where, everybody does not fit in the same mold, to your point. And that's why we wouldn't be able to put something in rule to say, here's what has to happen, because that would be, the opposite of the direction that we want to take in supporting people and having autonomy and making those decisions. We want to give the structure, we want to give the training, and we want to empower folks to be able to work together to find that balance. So I'm happy to discuss that further at another time if you'd like.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Kidron.
Yeah.
Thanks, Betty. Liz, I see your hand, and yeah, go ahead.
I think she may have just lowered it. Liz, did you need anything or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Sounds good. Anything else for person-centered support coordination? I see some comments in the chat. Yes, this applies to all service delivery and agencies. We'll take back the comment about the or for the utilization review. If there's any changes to quarterly monitorings, we will update these rules to reflect that. Jerry, I see your hand. Go ahead, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, my question is about when the person-centered budget algorithm, PCBA, is designed and ready to be implemented. Will that go in this section of rules? Because that would, that would require new and different rules.
Yes, it will. It will have its own section, and you're right, it will influence the rules. So these will have to be opened up again and updated when that goes into effect.
It seems like this particular section would be where it would be placed. Is that the plan?
I think so. Those aren't my particular rules. I know we've put a kind of bookmark right after these to kind of hold a place for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Right. Any other questions? Are we ready to move on?
I think we can keep moving.
All right, let's see. Past one of the sections. Yep. Support plan development. Did we read this part yet? To support members and providers selection? I don't think so. To the degree and sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, yep, you're in the right spot.
Gotcha, good. Okay, support members in provider selection to the degree and depth that the member or family requests or requires for successful placement with the direct service provider. And just some updates to references, and then include an explanation to the individual of grievance and complaint procedure for case management agency and providers. And then we just have, in order to assure quality of service and supports and the health and welfare of the individual, the case manager shall ask for permission from the member to observe the individual's residence prior to completing and submitting the individual support plan. But this shall not be compulsory of the individual member. So I think we can pause there if there's any questions, and then we can go to monitoring.
All right. Sorry, my button wasn't working. I'll open the queue for comments or questions. If you'd like to raise your hand, or you can put your name in the chat if you'd like to do a verbal comment. We are looking at pages 15 and 16 under support plan development. Anyone have questions, comments to add? Okay, seeing none, we will keep moving.
All right, we'll start with monitoring. Case management agency language update right there, and then A, under monitoring, the case manager shall complete monitoring activities to ensure the right, health, safety, and welfare of members, and that members are provided quality services as authorized in their person-centered support plan in a manner that promotes self-determination, self-representation, and self-advocacy, and are person-centered. Monitoring activities shall include, but not be limited to, the following. And then this is all the same, except for under 2, the case manager shall contact service providers at a minimum of every 6 months was added. And then under 2, an in-person monitoring contact is required at least one time during the person-centered support plan certification period, not to include the annual long-term service support level of care reassessment. And everything else is the same. So we can pause there if there's any questions on that section before we move to critical incident reporting. You can raise your hand or put your name in the chat.
I'll open the queue. Sorry, again, I'm having trouble with my button today. I see Jose, you're in the queue. Just a minute. Anyone else? Raise your hand, or I see Nancy. You can put your name in the chat if you'd like to be added to the verbal queue. You can also add comments in the chat that will be added to our log. Liz, I see your hand. Anyone else? Okay, Jose, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Hi. So when you mentioned the in-person monitoring, since the point above was talking about case managers talking to providers, I believe that this should clarify that the 6 months contact refers to the actual client, not to the providers, just to make it clear that we're talking about 2 different scenarios.
So you're asking for clarity about that the monitoring should be of the person, not
Right,
just the providers. Yeah.
Right, because in point 3, the case manager shall perform a monitoring contact with the member as defined of the member clarification. But before that, you're talking about that the case manager should also be in contact with service providers. So it's kind of confusing which one is which.
Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback, Jose. We'll have
Of
the
course.
team relook at this and try to clarify that. Thank you.
This Steve, would it be as simple as manager shall also contact service providers?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Nancy, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Tiffany, real quick, on page 19, maybe it's not 19, sorry.
It's okay.
No, page 16, where it says the case manager shall ask for permission from the member to observe the individual's residence. And then when you go down to monitoring, it says the case manager shall complete monitoring activities. Let's see. Sorry, it's shall monitor services providers in the delivery of services and supports identified. Well, I think that's a little confusing just because some of that is in the person's home. So do we have to ask permission on page 19? Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm asking?
So you're asking about the difference between ensuring the rights, health, safety, and welfare of members, needing to observe their home.
Yep, and asking permission.
And asking for permission.
Yeah.
Kedron, I don't know if you have an elegant answer for that. I think that would be expected, that in order to ensure health, welfare, and safety, that there is permission being asked.
Yeah, it's really about, again, it's really about finding the balance of us meeting federal requirements to be doing certain activities in locations where members live or receiving services, but also still helping them have autonomy and how that decision is made. So it's really about finding that balance. And that's our effort, to be able to have that reflected within our rules and be more person-centered.
So to clarify, Kedron, if we're doing a residential monitoring, we have to ask permission from that person to do a residential monitoring, and they can decline? Specifically, if there's a health and safety?
They do have the autonomy to decline. It would be the process for the case manager, expected process for the case manager to walk the member through informed decision making. So, explaining to the member what is the requirement to do the monitoring and give them autonomy in making that decision. And then coming up with a plan to complete any activities based on the decision that the member is making in that informed decision process. Keeping in mind that this is just monitoring and there are other case management activities that may be completed in the home.
I think that's going to pose a big problem, Kedron. I'm just throwing that out there because if we're doing a critical incident review and we need to ensure the person's health and safety, we've encountered where the host home provider has a lot of influence over the person, and they're not going to allow us to do that. So a thorough follow-up on a critical incident report will probably not happen. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nancy. Appreciate your feedback.
So Kindred, should we put a note in the listening log about thinking about establishing some guidance for when people should be required to have entry or to see the person if there's a health and safety concern?
Yep, I think that's great, Steve. Thanks.
We will do that.
All right, Liz Parr.
I had a couple questions. One is kind of a follow-up to Nancy's, which I agree with her statements. The other issue is if one is required in person, either in the home or a place where they receive services, what if the person only receives services in the home? What would be the fallback if they say that they do not want us in the home?
Sure, Liz, and I don't have an answer for you within our, that would be a conversation for further discussion, not relevant to our rulemaking process here today. But it's something really good to have on our radar to walk through and to include in any training and guidance that's given to the case management agencies and case managers. So it's really good to point that out.
Right, and not just training, because, you know, we're obligated to share rules with people. So if it says in rules that they can decline it, and yet we're obligated to do it, we need to have something to back up our actions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, this is just one example of, you know, how case managers navigate requirements of enrollment or you know, that balance of what does a member have as a responsibility and their service planning and informed decision making, and what case managers have as a responsibility for making sure that we're doing all the case management activities in the way that's prescribed by our rules and regulatory and contractual language. So there is, you know, each day case managers navigate things that have to have that balance. This is just one that we would have to discuss further.
And my other question related to the quarterly monitoring, there was a statement made about not including the service plan. So is it really 3 quarterly monitorings that case management agencies will be required to complete, or is it 4, just not in tandem with the service plan or person, whatever it's called now?
So I think it's 4. Go ahead, Kidron.
Well, we right now we are working with our federal partners to identify how many monitorings there will be. So that is yet to be decided. And we'll make sure and share that out as soon as we have a full agreement with CMS about what that needs to look like.
Okay, and so then this would be updated, because if it's not truly quarterly, it would be updated?
Correct.
Okay. Can I ask what you're thinking? What is going to be proposed?
Sure. You yes, you can ask, Liz. Unfortunately, we're still in the discussion with CMS about that, and I would not be able to give that in great detail today because of the current status that we are in with discussions with CMS.
Okay, but that would be updated accordingly in the section.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz. All right, Betty.
So I'm stuck back on the DD waiver waiting list exceptions for homelessness. And my question is, if a person qualifies to be on the DD waiver in all respects, but no home, no placement can be located, found, no direct service providers can be found, then I don't feel it's fair to close out their case in 30 days because that's a ever-present problem. And it's also difficult for people to say, okay, you've got 30 days to find another place to live, to the support system. And if those places are either inappropriate, not available, full, you know, whatever it might be, I think there should be an extension on the person's enrollment opportunity into the DD waiver if the reason that they can't get in is because there's no housing available, no providers available, or a reason similar to that. And I think that should be stated in the rules so that people, there's more impetus to helping people find it instead of just saying, well, they're never going to find anything in 30 days, so they're going to get kicked out. Because that's really often the case. I mean, 30 days to find a new place to live with appropriate providers, appropriate situation within the catchment area. It's a pretty tall order for somebody who's in crisis already. And that is the reason that they're on an emergency enrollment.
Sure. Tiffany, I'm going to just jump right in with that, if that's okay. Do we have time for me to answer? Okay, great. Thanks, Betty. And we would completely agree with you. Our language about accepting an enrollment within 30 days is whether or not the member accepts the enrollment. It's not that they are actively receiving services in a new residential placement, et cetera. So we absolutely make accommodations to say, you know, because we understand sometimes it takes a while to find that good fit for folks in that situation. So we definitely accommodate that. The language is to say, do they accept the enrollment or do they decline? We have folks that truly do decline enrollment into the DD waiver, whether they're on the waiting list and their name comes up next on the waiting list, or we even have people that we approve an emergency enrollment and then they eventually decline. But we need something in there to say we've got to put some sort of a timeline on there, because we're managing that statewide waiting list and we have to be able to move to the next person if they say, no, I don't need it. And so that's why that language is there, but that's not to say that folks would not be afforded the opportunity to have time to find the right fit for a new provider.
And
Hopefully that
Kidron,
helps.
that's the acceptance is literally them saying to a case manager or emailing a case manager back and saying, yes, I do want that.
Correct.
However, the question then, just in this could maybe not in rules, but we have lots of instances where people don't know, a family might decline because nothing was found. And so they don't understand that you don't have to decline your opportunity for your adult child to be in the DD waiver. More effort needs to be made by case management, by PASAs, by other resources in the community to find an appropriate placement. So we don't know if people are declining because they can't find anything.
Thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, you would know if it's even asked, why are you declining this? And if the reason is because we can't find an appropriate opportunity for home and community-based living for this person, then that shouldn't be a decline. That should be an effort then to find something appropriate. And I don't know that people understand that, quite frankly. They're just like, I've got 30 days. If I don't do it in 30 days, then I'm going to lose the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for that, Betty. And we do have a staff at the department that manages those approvals, responses, helps track those things. So those are questions that we're asking. It's the role of that person's job to be able to facilitate those types of questions and discussions. So we definitely hear you. I hope you hear me in saying that we want people to be afforded opportunity to find timelines, to find appropriate fits to meet the needs that they have if they are approved for that emergency enrollment or just approved for the enrollment and the DD waiver based on the wait list.
And when that does happen and you have the appropriate people at the state who are asking those questions, and if the answer is, well, you know, the PASA said they don't have anything, what does the state do?
So
Sorry, I'm just going to put in a really quick that we have a time check.
Okay, I'm just asking because I think this occurs, and I think that people are just left, you know, without resources because nothing was found, and they don't know how to access anything more than what the PASA might have to offer.
Thanks, Betty.
All right. Thanks for the time check. Jose, you're next in our queue. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Tiffany. Following up through what Betty was saying, I have a question, and this is more clarifying. In the DD waiver, does Medicaid allow the same as other waivers where people can be homeless and still receive services? Or is that no because of the type of services that they receive? Because that would be a workaround to what Betty is saying. I'm just asking because I know enough about the DD waiver services.
I
So,
don't know the answer to that question. Go ahead, Kidron.
sure. So Jose, let me make sure that I understand your question. So you're asking, let's say a member is approved for enrollment into the DD waiver. However, that might happen, and you say they're homeless. Can they receive other services while they're looking for a residential placement?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And the answer
Because
is yes, absolutely. And we absolutely would encourage any services to be set up as soon as possible, knowing that even that residential piece may take a little bit longer, but there's a whole menu of services that are available to members in that waiver. And we would expect that there be effort to find services as quickly as possible, even if the residential piece takes a little while longer.
would that include things like home care? Because I'm asking because in the EBD waiver, CIH waiver, etc., we allow members to be homeless and yet receive CDAS at their place of residence, whatever that is.
Sure. So I think each individual situation would vary, Jose, but it's very possible that a member might be able to access like long-term home health or, other services while they're waiting for a residential placement. The goal is to just make sure that nothing is duplicative. So if that's the fit that works for that member while they're looking for residential placement, we would expect that planning occur, and Health First Colorado benefits would cover any type of need that they have while they're looking for placement. Again, each individual situation may vary, but there's definitely avenues for people to start receiving services.
Okay. Thanks for that, Kidron. Thanks for that question, Jose. Amanda Lighthizer, you're in the queue. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning. I just wanted to go back to monitoring. I appreciate the conversation regarding eligibility for DD waiver, but I put a question in the chat and just wanted to clarify the monitoring piece. So just around the case manager shall perform 3 additional monitoring contacts. It does talk about it being on the member's preference of engagement. And then number 2 below that talks about letters, emails, or voicemails would not constitute a monitoring contact for this purpose. So I just wanted to make a comment about that or ask the question. I mean, I do think that voicemail can be bidirectional at times. Email obviously is bidirectional and could be more of the member's preference. And sometimes case managers do play phone tag back and forth, asking questions, getting a response. And it appears that is being excluded. So I just want to make sure that there's clarification around that and making sure that we are able to use all the different preferences that a member may have.
Tiffany, I can jump in and respond to that. Great. Thanks, Amanda, for your question. Yeah, this is language that is part of those conversations with CMS about what their requirements would be for those contacts. So this is part of what we're currently discussing with CMS. And we'll reach a final decision with what that looks like at that point when we finalize those discussions. Thanks for that feedback.
Amanda, it sounds like what you're asking for is some flexibility on member preference based on your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to, that is very specific in the rules. And so I want to make sure that we're able to meet that requirement and do have some flexibility in doing that. I think even with one face-to-face visit, we were hoping to have a little bit of flexibility with that too. It looks like that is pretty specific in the rule too. So just trying to make sure that it works both for members receiving services and case management agencies.
Yeah, I feel like I'm like channeling my Amanda Lofgren spirit. CMS has come back with some pretty decisive opinions about what those monitorings need to be, including that face-to-face piece that you see reflected here. We're doing the department staff that are working with CMS are doing everything possible to create as much flexibility as CMS will allow. So please know that whatever this, whatever the outcome of this and whatever is in that final rule is has been negotiated with CMS. It is not necessarily coming straight from the State Department. Those are requirements of a federal program.
That's helpful context. Thanks for sharing that, Tiffany.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's move on to critical incident reporting. This will be our last section for today. And then next week we'll pick up where we left off here.
All right. So in the beginning piece, there's no changes. Just some updates under D to some of the references, and under E, just some reference updates. Under G, it's just the case management agency language. And then again, a lot of the statute updates that are added in here. That's really it for our changes to that section. And then case management agency transfers. Sorry. Okay. Case management agencies shall complete the following procedures in the event an individual receiving services transfers from one case management agency defined service area to another case management agency defined service area. Transfer activities shall include at minimum initial contact to the case management agency in the designated service area of the member. 2, determine of transfer date. A, determination of transfer date shall not be delayed based on receipt of mailed, electronic, or paper records. 3, necessary permissions and all appropriate department prescribed systems. 4, both agencies sending and receiving must verify and document transfer requests sent and transfer requests received. 5, all transfer activities shall be documented and recorded in the department's prescribed system. Under 6, just changing that language to the case management agency. And C, the transferring case management agencies shall contact the receiving case management agency by telephone and give notification that the individual is planning to transfer, negotiate a transfer date, and provide all necessary information. D, both agencies sending and receiving must verify and document transfer request and request sent and transfer request received. E, the transferring case management agency shall notify the original County Department of Social Services eligibility enrollment specialist of the individual's plan to transfer and the transfer date. And eligibility enrollment specialist shall follow rules described in sections 8.100.3.c. The receiving case management agency shall coordinate the transfer with the eligibility enrollment specialist of the new county. F, The transferring case management agency shall make available in the IMS the individual's case record to the receiving case management agency prior to the relocation. G, if an individual is moving from one case management agency in defined service area to another case management agency in defined service area to enter an ACF or NF, the transferring case management agency shall forward copies of the individual's record to the facility prior to the individual's admission to the facility in accordance with section 8.393.6.a. And H, to ensure continuity of service and supports the transferring case management agency and the receiving case management agency shall coordinate arrangement of services prior to the individual's relocation to the receiving case management agency's defined service area and within 10 working days after notification of the individual's relocation. Case management agencies shall work collaboratively to ensure a smooth transfer of service is complete. And then we just have some of those language updates for the rest of the case management agency and level of care screen. And L, if indicated by changes in the person-centered support plan, the receiving case management agencies shall revise the person-centered support plan and prior authorization forms as identified during the review. And then that is it for our transferring section.
Okay. Then we will open up the queue. You can raise your hand or put your name in the chat and we will get to your comments. Again, you'll have 2 minutes to state your question or comment, and then we'll have department staff respond. Anyone for the verbal queue with a hand? Alex Brown, I see you. Hold on just a second. Let me see if there's anybody else in the queue. Anybody else would like to be included? Okay, Alex, you're it. Go ahead.
So I put this in the chat, but I just think it needs to be said. For transfers, there's a lot of back and forth that happens, and it usually takes several weeks. And so I personally don't see the reason why it has to be over telephone. I think it's being done successfully over email currently. So I find it a little silly that it needs to be over telephone. But then also I think that would make it so, I think it just is, to summarize, I think it's silly. But I do see some other people have put some things in there.
Great. Thanks for that feedback, Alex. We will take that back. And Amanda too, I think you agreed in the chat. All right, Tara.
I don't know if this is a question or a comment or just a consideration, but I know there have been times in the past when we have had a member transfer someplace else in the state and the receiving case management agency has not been able to take them on immediately. And we have ended up kind of keeping the case management longer than we normally would, just to give that case management agency time to staff up. And I don't know if that is going to be allowed under this new rule. And if not, I think figuring out some ways to ensure that case management agencies are ready to take on a new member at that transfer date might be needed.
So are you asking for like a specific time frame of when a case management agency needs to be ready to receive, or can you tell me a little bit more?
That's why I said I don't know exactly what I'm asking.
Okay,
just
fair
telling
enough.
you about something that occasionally happens, and the fact that we're able to be flexible and just say, hey, we can, continue the case management until you're ready, instead of it being this really awkward situation where the member's kind of left out, because we do have the flexibility to say, hey, we'll keep this on until it really can be a nice organic process.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering if there's going to be that flexibility in this new system.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure what we have considered necessarily on that nuance, but we'll take that back to the team and talk through that process and reach out if we have questions about the language here.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank
Tara.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. All right, Betty, go ahead.
There were 3 acronyms in that section. I would love to have them spelled out, and you could put in parens afterwards what the acronym is. But I had to think, what is that? What is that? And I'm thinking that should just be spelled out. That's all.
Great, thanks for that. We do have the acronyms are spelled out at the beginning of this section of the case management section in the definitions.
Okay.
That's not something that we reviewed today, obviously, because we're going section by section. That is in the definitions earlier.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll talk through that for this section too. Thanks, Betty. Anyone else for the queue? Okay, I see some comments in the chat. Again, we're responding where we can, but all of these will be put into our listening log and responded to in writing in those sections. I'll do kind of a last call for any other comments for today, verbal comments for today, or chat comments or questions for today to be logged. Is there anyone else? Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, Tiffany, on B2, where it says determination of transfer date shall not be delayed based on receipt of mailed electronic or paper records. I do think there has to be some consideration for things like DD determination, delay determination, in those IDD waivers, because sometimes that poses an issue for the transferring agency and the receiving agency, because, well, it just does.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Kadrin.
Yeah, just really quickly wanted to address that, Nancy. So keep in mind that when these rules go live, we will have our new care and case management system, which will have all those records within the system. It will no longer be like, you'll still have paper files for folks, but all of those documents will be housed in the care and case management system. And so there shouldn't be as much of a delay there.
But that's just for the legacies, right? For 3 years back? Are you saying that CCMS will feed all that information in the new care and case management system, so we don't have to request those records?
I believe the plan is, so there will be legacy information, but then for a person's record, you will be able to upload those directly into the CCM. So, mailing copies of things or emailing copies of things where you are dealing with large encrypted emails, et cetera. The hope is that the CCM, the care and case management system, will be a better avenue for you to be able to share that information without that lag time.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Kidron.
You bet. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our time for discussion. We obviously have not gotten through all of what we have to get through for our case management rules. So we will reconvene again next week, and we'll start here where we left off at the end of at the beginning of page 23 with case management agency member choice. Again, we'll reconvene next week. We'll have a similar format. So if you are able to join us, that would be great. That information is the same as this login information here. So again, thank you so much for all of your feedback. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience in this process. I know that it is quite a big lift for this.
Is it what time next week? 9 to 11?
9 to 11, yes, Jerry.
And there's also a meeting on the 9th, May 9th. And I don't understand about people need to write to Tiffany if they want to attend on the 9th.
Yes, so the 9th is the issues for further discussion, our follow-up conversation. Currently, the major issues with case management agencies and waivers that we have is case management agency choice and cost containment. So those will be two of the topics discussed. Anything that has come up today will be on those topics for discussion. And then anything that comes up next week will be on that agenda for topics for discussion. So yes,
Is that also 9 to 11 on the 9th?
Yes.
And where do we find the link to the meeting on the 2nd and the meeting on the 9th?
The meeting on the 2nd is on the stakeholder calendar. The meeting on the 9th has not been added yet. I will be emailing the people who have said they are interested in that directly. Jerry, you are on that list.
Thanks.
And so am I, Tiffany.
And Jose, you are on that list, yes. So please feel free to check that list from the issues for further discussion attendees. I'm happy to add other people. I'll put my email in the chat. Nancy, I will add you. Thank you. Here is my email. And you're welcome to email me directly. I will email you directly with that link. We will also put it on the stakeholder calendar, but we don't want the specific people who are interested to miss that link. So if you are interested, you can put your name in the chat, or you can email me directly and I will add your name to my list of direct participants. Let's see, anything else? So yes, we do have the next 2 weeks will be case management. So we have May 2nd from 9 to 11. This exact same Zoom meeting will be your link for that meeting. And then on the 9th from 9 to 11, we will have a different link for the issues for further discussion for case management. And then at that point, we will be done with case management rules as far as this stakeholder engagement goes. Of course, if you have other feedback or questions that you would like added, language that you'd like clarified, you are welcome to send that in. We'll be updating all of these with all of your suggestions between now and July. And then on May 16th, we will start our provider requirements and service requirements. And that set of rules will be posted on our website on May 9th. I know it's a lot of details.
Will both the meetings on the 2nd and the 9th be recorded, including any chat features?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the meeting for the 9th is actually, it doesn't go as long as this one. It goes until 10:30, from 9 to 10.
9 to 10:30. Okay. There will be a presentation in that discussion, in that meeting, along with leadership discussion. So yes, please feel free to come. So with that, I think that ends today's meeting. Thank you again all for being here. We will again save the chat. We will have the recording and all of that posted here shortly. If you'd like to see today's comments or questions, you can go to our website right now and see those updates. Our contractors, Steve and his team have been making updates as we've been talking today. So
I'll
if
give
there's not anything
everybody-
else, oh, go ahead.
I'll give everybody just a moment that wants to copy the chat.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much. We will see you soon. Okay, I think we're good.
All right, thanks, everybody.